Apologies. The website is a little slow. It's like a lot of people are visiting it this morning for some reason.
Interesting.
Probably to find out what outside things they could do today.
It'll be the road conditions page.
I know.
No, they're just excited about this meeting. They want to get the agenda. Yay, civic engagement.
All right. It looks like everything is ready to go, Tara, so I can hit record whenever you're ready.
Okay, we do have quorum, and it's 10, so record. I think we're ready. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first Long-Term Care Committee of Management meeting for 2026. The first item of business today is the election of the chair and vice chair. So this position will run the rest of the 2026 council term. So to begin, we'll start with elections for chair of the committee. Are there any nominations to start off? And just confirming that the current chair is Councillor Scott Mackey. Councillor Keaveney?
Good morning, everyone, and I would nominate Councillor Scott Mackey to continue as chair of this committee.
Okay, thank you. And I see a seconder, I believe I saw Councillor Nielsen. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair of the Committee of Management? I see none. Is there a motion to close nominations? Councillor Nielsen, thank you.
I can move that.
Councillor Mackey, do you wish to have your name stand for chair of the committee?
I appreciate the nominator and seconder, and yes, I will let my name stand. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You are so acclaimed. This time I'll open the floor up to nominations for vice chair of the committee. Are there any nominations for vice chair? Councillor Mackey? Sorry, I missed that. I'm not sure if you're on mute or my volume's not working.
Sorry, I was on mute, Tara. Your volume is working fine. I would nominate Councillor Patterson as vice chair.
Okay, thank you. And seconder, Councillor Hutchinson. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. Seeing none. Motion to close nominations. Councillor Mackey, Councillor Carlton. Take Councillor Carlton. Thank you. Councillor Patterson, do you wish to have your name stand for vice chair?
I would be pleased to have my name stand, and I thank the nominator and seconder.
Right, thank you very much. And you are acclaimed vice chair of the committee for 2026. And at this time, I will pass it over to you, Chair Mackey, to continue the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Good morning, everyone. And thanks once again for your confidence in my position as chair. Look forward to working with everyone over 2026. And this is, in my opinion, the most important committee that we have at Grey County, looking after our vulnerable seniors. So with that being said, we will call the meeting to order for the Long-Term Care Committee of Management for January the 15th. Just remind members of the elected officials of your obligation to declare an interest. Seeing nothing, if anything should arise, you may declare it at that time. There is no delegations this morning, Tara?
Correct.
Thank you. Items for direction and discussion. We have the report, the LTC RCM 0126 regarding the long-term care director update be received for information. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Hutchinson. That is now on the floor, and I will turn it over to Jennifer Cornell. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning. Good morning, committee. Congratulations, chair and vice chair. I am giving a high-level update from the director's update report. I have moved some notes in front of me, so if there's questions, if someone could interrupt verbally, then because I won't notice a hand. So this report highlights the ministry updates for the period of November 1st to December 31st. A number of ministry updates over this time. November 12th, the Minister of Long-Term Care announced $180 million in funding programs aimed at attracting and retaining nurses in long-term care. And there's a series of different opportunities that are listed in the report. The Patient Ombudsman's annual report for 24-25 was released on November 13th and shows a 10% rise in complaints, which is just under 5,000 cases. And for committee's interest and information, some key long-term care themes included transitions of care, so related to hospital discharge, access to long-term care, hospital to long-term care placement. The top long-term care issues were around quality of care, communication, abuse and assault, discharge and transfers, safety, and persistent concerns around falls, wounds, and responsive behaviors. Future focus is around monitoring denied LTC admissions for dementia-related behaviors, falls, and skin integrity. And the report offered 6 recommendations around improvement around palliative care. And these reports are really valuable and useful information for us to get a sense of what is happening more broadly and what we can be planning for and thinking about. The monitoring of denied LTC admissions for dementia-related behaviors falls and skin integrity. This just speaks to the increasing level of acuity and complexity of the people that are moving into our long-term care homes or that are applying for long-term care homes. And as operators, for us to balance providing placement and service that we feel we can safely accommodate. It's this balance of making sure that people are living in the place that they need to be living and that we have the resources to support that complexity. So it's an important matter. On November 18th, the Ministry of Long-Term Care announced the continuation of free skin and wound care education programs, including backfill to support staff to attend this training. And there's some specifics listed. Family Councils of Ontario has announced that they've received additional funding to support pilot projects focused on strengthening council resources across the province. And this is important. We value the involvement of our families in Family Council, and it's not always easy to have a broad number of families represented on Family Council. So Family Councils of Ontario help support that work. On November 18th, the minister announced the consolidation of 3 nurse practitioner programs. So it was 3 little programs that they've combined into one, just in an effort to support long-term care homes in recruiting nurse practitioners into the field, and also as a part of the kind of cutting red tape. So some of our concerns in long-term care is around the reporting that's required for this little program, this little program, this little program. And so the ministry is making an effort to consolidate those programs. November 21st, the ministry released a memo regarding annual emergency management attestation. So part of the Fixing Long-Term Care Act, homes must have an emergency plan in place, and they must submit an attestation confirming our compliance with our plan. And each of our 3 homes conducts an annual review and completes a very robust checklist to ensure compliance and identify any areas for improvement. December 1st, the ministry announced a one-time top-up to the Supporting Professional Growth Fund, an additional $14.42 per bed per month. And so that's a welcome investment that helps us support professional growth, education, training. On December 10th, The long-term care homes received a memo announcing the expansion of the modified cultural placement model. This was originally piloted in 29 long-term care homes, and this model prioritizes crisis applications based on urgency, and when urgency is equal, gives preference to those who share the home's cultural background. And Advantage Ontario played a really big role in advocating for this work, as we were seeing across the province a decline in people that are seeking culturally specific care, access to that culturally specific care. And that might be, it might be religiously specific, it might be culturally specific. So this is a really welcome change. And I'm feeling very hopeful that this legislative change may also support some of the challenges we're facing with specialized care units. So for example, our behavioral support transition unit, we have residents who are ready to transition to traditional long-term care, but because of the way the placement language is, they are not always first on the list to make that transition. And so then they're remaining in the BSTU when they're ready to not be there. And then people who are waiting on the list won't have that access. So hopeful that this change will lead to a broader approach to that. Additionally, on that same day, there was an announcement increasing the number of designated reunification priority access beds across long-term care across Ontario. And this is intended to better support spouses and partners who wish to live together in long-term care, particularly those in crisis. Family updates. In December, we released a recording of our 4th quarterly family meeting. This meeting provided an overview of these updates, as well as a summary of the resident and family experience survey results. The link is there if you wish to watch it. We have moved to pre-recording our update and then sending it out to families and friends and individuals who have signed up to receive that information. We were hosting them in the evening and not really getting a huge volume of people attending the live update, but a lot of people watching it later at their convenience. So we are just trialing pre-recording. If there's an urgent issue or people are looking to have a live event, we will do that. Infection prevention and control. There were a number of, there was some updates and memos around the respiratory season, our responsibilities, and some recommendations about best managing and providing care and service in really a higher trend of respiratory outbreaks. And we saw that in our own homes, and we saw it locally. There's a lot of information in this section, and I'll just highlight that in response to these various recommendations, our 3 homes implemented universal masking at all 3 homes on December 19th as an added precaution. When we do that, we have a very broad process that includes the IPAC managers, the leadership teams, the residents, family council engagement with staff, and we make a commitment to assess on a regular basis. And we are working through an assessment right now to determine whether we will reduce the universal masking next week based on trends of outbreaks and the feelings of the residents and families. And that it's kind of like back in the COVID days, we would turn down the volume and turn up the volume depending on what's happening around us. And there really was a high number of influenza cases. And in our operation report, Dana will speak to some of this as well, a higher number of influenza cases than there has been historically. Staffing and training, we continue to recruit, continue to work with our student placement partners and and opportunities with colleges. And throughout November, we focused on Fall Prevention Month. The fourth quarter of our staff wellness newsletter was released at the end of December, and this newsletter promotes our employee assistance program, wellness tips and resources, Color It Spirit photos, Color It stories, the diversity and inclusion calendars, IPAC tips, all sorts of information, and it's a digital document that people can access and follow links. Accreditation. As part of our ongoing accreditation journey, all 3 homes have completed the 2025 Global Workforce Survey. These results, along with the Corporate Employee Survey, Experience Survey, will be analyzed to develop action plans for improvement, and we'll be conducting this annually. And so we're working in that assessment stage right now, and then looking at what action plans that we need to be implementing and working with our teams. Partnerships, lots of activity happening over this period. The Rural Healthcare Symposium was held on November 14th, and I was pleased to have an invitation to be a part of that. Grey County representatives shared insights, successes, and addressed the unique challenges facing rural communities. The PrEP LTC student placement program for Grey County was featured in the Ontario Centres for Learning, Research and Innovation, CLRI, annual report. It's linked here. Its success continues to grow, with our coordinator presenting strategies at Advantage Ontario's Health Human Resources Seniors Care session in Toronto on November 4th. So really excited that Stephanie had the invitation and was able to go in and make that presentation. To celebrate teamwork across all 3 homes, there's a short video linked here highlighting our achievements that was showcased at our Long-Term Care Leadership Day on November 19th. I had a chance to participate in Queen's Park Lobby Day or Advocacy Day on November 24th. It's a key advocacy event focused on seniors' care. Had a chance to have meetings with ministers, opposition leaders, political staff to discuss sector priorities such as staffing, funding, mental health supports, and expanded housing options. These conversations highlighted the growing pressures on long-term care due to an aging population and rising resident acuity. And it was a really great day and a chance. Advantage Ontario hosts a reception at the end of the day that was very well attended. And there were speakers from all 3 of the parties, ending with Minister Kusindova Bashta, who is the Minister of Long-Term Care. And one thing that I just was feeling so pleased about was the alignment of the speakers across all 3 parties, united in the goal of improving the experience of the lives of the people that live and work in long-term care. And that was heard across all 3. It was across all 3 parties, and it was really heartwarming and really feeling very hopeful. And that's my report, and happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thanks very much, Jen. It's very uncommon to have alignment of 3 provincial parties, so that's great to see that they're all advocating in the same direction. Are there questions from members of the committee? Vice Chair Patterson, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Mackey. Through you. Thanks for the detailed report, Jen. My question is the Patient Ombudsman annual report. It spoke to stronger discharge planning. Can you expand on that? And is that discharge to other homes and their own home, residents' homes? Can you just expand a bit, please?
My take on it is discharge planning to be this very successful kind of warm handoff and a transition from one organization to another, and particularly hospital or in crisis in the community to long-term care, so that we have, it's really important that all the parties have all the information, all of the tools, all of the resources to make that move successful for the resident and their family. And it's very easy for some things to go wrong in that transition. And those first weeks of moving in, those 1st days are very overwhelming for everyone. And that can set the tone of the experience for a long period of time. So it's really about making sure that all of the background information is shared across all of the parties. And I don't know, I saw Denna, I didn't know if you had anything to add, Denna?
No, I think I was just echoing about that very critical period in transitions in care, where the communication, the accurate documentation, particularly when folks may not have regular care providers or primary care providers and may have been receiving care from a variety of sources. So I think that is a pretty significant time frame.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members? The chair does have a question, Jen, just, and again, it's part of the Ombudsman report, but the monitor and denied LTC admissions. Can you speak more about who gets denied? And I wasn't aware people were denied access.
Sure, and through you, Mr. Chair, kind of forgot the rules of the day a minute ago. So through you, Mr. Chair, that's a great, it's a good question. And it is operators and homes are it's really important that when the application process happens, part of our work is to review the application and feel confident that we have the resources and the skills to be able to support the care needs of the resident that's made application to our home. At times, there can be situations where we feel we may not be able to support the resident's care that has made application. For example, if the home is already supporting some very clinically complex or high levels of cognitive impairment with some responsive behaviors on one home area, and the room that's available is also on that home area, and there's some concern that adding another resident with very high clinical complexity may stretch the resources too thin. We don't have the skills and ability under those circumstances. So we can deny an application. There is a very strict process for denying an application. We have to have very clearly articulated reasons. And there's a great effort between Ontario Health at Home, which is formerly CCAC, if the person's living in a hospital, for example, the hospital team and the long-term care team will have coordinated care conferences to see if there's opportunities to make changes to the interventions. Can the hospital provide some support, for example? Is there other strategies that we might take? Tolene just shared me some information in the chat around the legislation. So there are three main areas that we can legislatively consider denying the application, and that's that the home lacks the physical facilities necessary to meet the needs, that we lack the nursing expertise to meet that specific applicant's care requirements, or that circumstances exist which are provided for in the regulations as being ground for withholding approval. So that relates to some other items. And so it isn't common, but when it happens, we have to be, the expectation is that we work with our partners to resolve the issues. What the Ombudsman will be focusing on is a trend, the worry of a trend of homes denying applications, and a patient perhaps living in a hospital where they are seemingly not being accepted to any long-term care home within their geographic area. And then how does the system support that individual? And so we can't just be denying because we feel like it's too difficult. We need to really be putting resources in, and that'll be the focus of the Ombudsman report.
So happy to hear that it rarely occurs in our homes. Did I hear you correctly?
I would say rarely. We have a process that I am looped in if we are denying an application or for declining an application, and so it does happen. And what happens subsequently is those conferences, those discussions. DENA offers support in helping to find resources. So we may initially decline, and then over a period of time, meetings, conversations with Ontario Health. So we say, if we had some funding to support these specific care requirements, we would be more easily able to support. Then there's some work to Ontario Health will provide us that funding, or we make application to the Ministry of Long-Term Care for high intensity needs, because perhaps that individual needs to live in a private room, but the only space we have available is a shared accommodation. So over a period of time, often we will be able to resolve and then update the application to approve. On the rare occasion, we will continue to decline the application if we are concerned about any of those three areas, and particularly other resident safety, staff safety, and that individual's applicant safety.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. My only other question was, what are the $14.42 per month per bed is for staffing growth and new bed development. Can you just speak on how we're planning to use those funds?
Marcus has joined the meeting, and I believe that adds up to about $55,000 across the three homes. And so we just had some initial discussions yesterday, actually, about how we may use those funds. The intention is for staff development, education, and training. And so we're just working through what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. All right, all in favor, if there's no other questions, I'm not seeing any, all in favor of receiving the director's update? That is carried, thank you. Next, we have report LTCR CM 0226 regarding the long-term care operational report dated October 15th to December 14th. Be received for information. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Carleton. It is now on the floor. And Jen, you were so kind to send, anticipating that I might be chair again, you sent me a list of individuals that are going to provide this report for us. So we start off with Dana, who is doing the clinical update. Dana, we'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, and through you, Mr. Chair, I want to provide a brief update on the clinical and quality review section of our operational report. Good news that all of our Grey County homes are now fully transitioned to the new InterRAI assessment system. We've been talking about that for a bit, with Lee Manor going live in July and Grey Gables and Rockwood Terrace following in December. So the shift of this new assessment structure brings modernized clinical tools. It has updated our clinical pathways in terms of updating the structure. We have enhanced assessment resources and reflecting a more timely turnaround. With all homes now aligned to this new system, we will be presenting some of the publicly reported quarterly indicators that you have been used to seeing on the report. However, there will be a bit of a caveat here. We do need two sets of data with the new system. So Lee Manor will have some preliminary data to share in our March committee, given that they were the early adopters, but the others will be following shortly thereafter. Again, reflecting on the need to analyze the two data sets. You'll also see in the report that we are making progress on our IPAC Champion program, and it's being well embraced through our team members. We also completed training on the skin and wound care, which speaks to the complexity of care we're receiving or working with some of our residents and trying to ensure that we have the best practice for our residents. We've also reached the halfway milestone in the Clinical Pathways Initiative, getting ready to roll out in the spring another pathway. But I wanted to highlight for sure our vaccination efforts of influenza and COVID, given the strong recommendations made by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So the vaccines were rolled out across our homes as soon as our vaccines were received. Staff were supported and encouraged through a variety of approaches to receive their vaccinations and meeting them where they were at, and doing a number of initiatives, including a wellness draw initiative aimed at improving the uptake of vaccines, in particular combating some of that vaccine fatigue that we have experienced provincially and perhaps nationally. But this approach did strengthen participation and reinforced our shared commitment to resident safety and well-being. And certainly it paid off in terms of being ready for the respiratory season that we've had to date. We continue to emphasize staying current with vaccinations as one of the most effective ways to protect both our residents and team members. And I'd be remiss if I didn't put a plug there too. If you haven't got your vaccines for flu or COVID, it's not too late. We are on the downward trend, but we've peaked, but certainly there's still activity out there. But as Jen said, we are monitoring the national flu trends. We are looking at what's happening provincially as well as what's happening regionally. And we are getting ready to turn down the dial with our IDEA's ethical framework for IPAC, but also prepared if we need to tune it up, always keeping the resident quality of life in mind. So that is my report.
Thank you, Dana. What percentage of our staff received the vaccinations?
In terms of the actual final report, we are just collating that because we have to present that report to public health. It would vary across the 3 homes, and I would say that it also varies across whether they received flu or COVID, and I can get those reports for you, that data for you next time, because it is part of our ongoing report. What I can say is that the trend was as a result of a number of initiatives, a lot of support to our team members. It has been higher than than the last 2 years.
Good, thank you.
And certainly our resident rates are very high.
Great.
In the high 90s.
Thank you. Any questions for Dana's part of the report from committee members? Councillor Keaveney, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mackey. And I'm just wondering about the RSV shots and recognizing the cost that's involved for people, who haven't reached a senior's age. And I don't know if there's any opportunity for us to consider how we might get staff vaccinated with the RSV. And I assume most of our residents are vaccinated with RSV, but just wondered, Dana, what your thoughts are on that for staffing.
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. In terms of there are criteria that public health sets out. So even if some of our residents don't hit the age criteria, there are other criteria which support receiving the free funding. So we're lucky there, but there is, in terms of our staff, there are a variety of conditions that need to exist with provincially funded vaccine, as well as within that staff member and their care provider to identify if they meet the risk criteria to receive RSV. The transmission, when we look, and this is sort of off the cuff, but in terms of the outbreaks and the staff to resident transmission, that has not been as much of identified factor from the province that we need to be providing that vaccine. So it is something that we are watching the trends of RSV, but at this point, there are no provincial guidance for our staff members. Certainly they can explore with their primary care provider and weigh those options.
Anything else for Dana? All right, we'll move on to the resident and family survey, and that is Jen again.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, as I mentioned in the director's update, the annual resident and family experience survey results were received in November. And if you are interested in more information, there's links here, but also that video. We have a slide deck and go through the slide deck for families more specifically around the results. Really positive results. 93% of residents are satisfied with the overall quality of service. 94% of residents would recommend the home to others. 96% of families are satisfied, and 97% of families would recommend the homes to others. The top words are caring, good, friendly, comfortable, and pleasant. The top domain areas for resident satisfaction were around quality of life, communication, and custom, which is really around additional services like foot care services, that they're listened to, that they are receiving helpful assistance, that they feel safe in expressing their opinions, that there's good hand hygiene, and that they have opportunities to communicate. The top areas for improvement, which I didn't include the numbers here, and off the top of my head, there's still around 80% of respondents are very satisfied or satisfied. So it's still a very small number in terms of dissatisfaction, but it's still an opportunity, an area to improve, is around care responsiveness and dining experience. And dining experiences is not new. Congregate dining is not something we do every day in our traditional life. And so it can be a challenge to meet all of the expectations of everyone's varying opinions about what pleasurable dining is. But we're willing to give it a shot. And so that's an area that across the division, we're doing some focused work on pleasurable dining. And so the teams at the homes are reviewing their data specific to their home and working with the residents, families, teams to put together action plans and change ideas of what they're working on for the 2026 year. And those results are there. And I'll just pause. I'm doing the next section as well, but I'll pause to see if there's any questions about the satisfaction surveys, which we do annually. It's legislated, but it's also a good idea.
Well, congratulations to everyone. You know, those 97% of families would recommend our homes. That's amazing. Questions from committee members? Not seeing any, Jen, so
okay.
Carry on.
All right, thank you. And so a little bit of a different approach today, committee, in terms of how we're presenting some of the rest of the information in the report. So the ministry inspectors were on site at all 3 homes during this reporting period. And so each home is going to speak to their ministry inspections individually, and then we'll go through the remainder of the report after that. And so I'm speaking to the Grey Gables ministry inspection. And so during this reporting period, the inspectors were on site October 27th to 30th, and then again November 3rd to November 6th. Their inspection resulted in 6 areas of non-compliance in the legislation in the level of written notification. And these 6 written notifications were related to 2 separate incidents. So 3 were linked with one incident and 3 were linked with another incident. The high level is around following policies and procedures, making sure care plans are up to date and followed, timeliness of reporting incidents to the Ministry of Long-Term Care. And so the public report is linked in the document for you to review. And I can assure you that the team at the home has a very robust compliance action plan. So back in the day, the ministry used to require us to do a compliance action plan and submit it. With the evolution of changes to the legislation, that's no longer a requirement to submit to the ministry, but we continue to do that practice because it is a good practice to have a document that outlines the areas of concern, and then we approach it. What's the immediate action? What's the short-term action? What's the long-term action? Who's responsible? Dates that they'll be done, and then notes to confirm that these action items have been followed. If committee is looking to speak more specifically, then I would ask committee to consider going into closed session because it's two situations. If we get into the nitty-gritty, it becomes identifiable information. So that's a high-level overview of Grey Gables. Happy to answer any questions. And then Tolleen is going to do a similar overview for the Lee Manor inspection, and Terry is going to do a similar overview for the Rockwood Terrace inspection.
So Jen, we do have a closed session today, so committee members can, if there was any questions, can think about those when we're in closed. Is that fair, Tara? I
see the clerk, so perhaps I...
Thank you. Just for clarification and confirmation, we do have closed session on today's agenda, but it's for us a different matter. So we would, to speak about another topic, we would have to do a formal amendment to the agenda to add that on. Though the exception would still be the same, or we could add it to a future agenda if committee does need to delve into it further.
Maybe I'll look to our deputy CAO. There was going to be an update for committee members today now.
So through you, Chair Mackey, thank you for that. There is going to be an update to members of committee today. Just to clarify, it's got nothing to do with the nothing directly to do with the two incidents that Director Connell has outlined for you today. So these are two separate things. If you did want to go into more details, and Director Connell and I have both reviewed these. Whilst it's never great to hear from the ministry and have these inspections and these written notices, as I'm sure you'll have perceived as you've gone through the public report, the two incidents are within the context of long-term care. I'm sure the committee members have some familiarity around some of the situations around that, and so. But if there are questions, as Director Cornell says, just for the protection of the residents, it would probably be worth taking those into closed.
Do any members of the committee have any specific questions? I'm not seeing anything else. I think we're good then.
Okay. Thank you. And so through you, Mr. Chair, I'll pass it over to Tolleen.
Okay. Good morning, Tolleen.
Tolleen, you're on mute.
Find the button. Sorry about that. Thank you. Through you, Chair Mackey. Thanks, Jen. So Lee Manor did have a visit from the ministry November 26th through till December 10th. Part of their visit during that time period was off-site, where they do documentation review. There was a bit of a weather issue, as you can imagine, up here in Grey Bears. And through that inspection, they came in to follow up on a number of critical incidents, as well as some IPAC critical incidents. So when they were here, they looked at the IPAC protocols, they looked at the falls protocol, they looked at skin and wound, and they looked at abuse and neglect. So there's several protocols within the standards in the Act that sort of frame all the work that we do in long-term care. So those are the particular specific protocols that they looked at. They did leave us with 5 written notifications. Again, I highlight that that's a lower level than an order or a referral, and it's sort of, there's an escalation of ways that they can issue areas of non-compliance. I also like to talk about the regulations. There's hundreds and hundreds of regulations that they could leave us areas of non-compliance about. So we received 5 written notifications. related to 2 incidents, actually, again, similar to the Grey Gables report. So 5 WNs related to 2 specific incidents. Again, to get into the details, it really could highlight a resident. So unless people have specific questions, we'll have to cross that bridge. But continence care, which is about following a care plan for residents, toileting needs, nutrition, which was specifically around our tray service process. So we're working on action plan around that. Again, reporting. So there was a thing where we didn't write down the date that we knew about the problem. We just didn't write it down. And so we have an unmet for that. And also related to the same thing, that it was reported a day late to the ministry. So trying to make sure that we don't have those late reporting incidents happen. And medication administration, which was all sort of tied to the nutritional program. So that's the 5 unmets that we had at Lee Manor, and happy to answer questions that I'm able to publicly.
Okay, thank you, Tolene. Any questions for Tolene from members of the committee? I think everyone's satisfied, so we'll move on to Terry at Rockwood.
Good morning, and through you, Mr. Chair. A Ministry of Long-Term Care inspector attended Rockwood Terrace from November 25th to 28th and on December 1st as well to conduct a follow-up related to a critical incident. During this inspection, a compliance order concerning the plan of care was issued. The inspector outlined the following action plan to bring us back into compliance. So as directed, we were to audit a specific staff member 3 times per week over a 3-week period to ensure care plan interventions are in place for residents under that person's care, as outlined in each care plan. So we were to document the following for each audit: resident's name, care plan intervention, date and time of the audit, and any corrective actions taken to address actions or inactions by this particular staff member. The compliance order was issued because one staff member failed to follow the care plan, resulting in adverse health consequences for a particular resident. And we're confident to be back in compliance when the ministry returns for their follow-up visit. And the deadline for compliance was actually yesterday, January 14th, 2026. And we did complete all the audits as outlined by the inspector.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions for Terry on that piece? Not seeing any. Terry, go ahead.
Okay, so moving on to projects. So during this reporting period, numerous projects did take place across all 3 care communities. One event I would like to highlight is the annual Christmas market, and this was held at both Grey Gables and Rockwood Terrace. These markets are always well attended by residents and family members, providing an opportunity for residents to enjoy some Christmas shopping and embrace the festive spirit. The events feature a wonderful selection of holiday treasures from various vendors, exciting draws, and a hot chocolate bar that encourages socialization and community connection. So these events are always enjoyed, and it's a great opportunity for families to come in and friends, and it really makes residents feel, part of the Christmas festivities. So always well attended. And that's the end of my report.
All right. Well, that sounds like a great opportunity for our residents to do some Christmas shopping. So thank you for that. And Tolene, you're going to go over the Color It stories. Sorry, Jen?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I think Karen, and maybe it's quite possible I gave you incorrect information this morning. So Karen is going to give a quick verbal update on operational readiness, if that's okay with committee.
Just to be clear, Jen, you did not give improper information. That falls on the chair who missed Karen in the operational readiness update for redevelopment. So we'll go to Karen. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, and through you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to provide a brief update on progress of operational readiness, and I believe on a go forward, this will be included as part of the report as well. The building, and this is Karen's number, is approximately 45% complete. We haven't received a report for the end of December as of yet. So that's my best guess, given the fact that the holiday season was included in the month of December too. There was some days when there was no work being completed. Sealing of the remaining part of the roof is causing some delays. The west wing is watertight, and they are working on drywall. In fact, had a significant amount of drywall up in that area, but moving around to the east wing is where they're still working on the roof and are looking for some dry days with no snow or rain. And as we all know, those are few and far between these days. So having some trouble with weather and allowing work to continue. A significant number of windows for, in particular, resident rooms arrived on site just before Christmas and are being installed. Drywalling, as I mentioned, is significantly underway in the west wing. We, as a group here at Rockwood Terrace, along with our project leaders at Colliers, are currently finalizing the first report, the first pre-occupancy report for the ministry, and we hope to send that into them here in February. We have started meeting preliminary with some key stakeholders and partners such as Ontario Health West, Ontario Health at Home, our pharmacy, our oxygen provider, etc. The move for current residents will occur in one day, so we hope to move approximately half the residents in the morning and the other remaining residents in the afternoon. So everyone will have breakfast in the current Rockwood Terrace, and everyone will be in the new building for supper time. And that's tentatively scheduled for January 27th next year, subject to building completion. New admissions will follow that once we've made the move of the current residents. And some of you will know we have some concerns about the scheduling for admissions because as per the regulations, the expectation is that we would admit 14 new residents per week until we've reached our 100% occupancy. So for us, that would be occur in 2 to 3 weeks. But we have some concerns with that, and I know some of you are going to be involved with the delegation at Roma regarding this. We are requesting that be decreased to 7 admissions per week, which is still pretty lofty, considering currently we try and limit it to maybe 2. But we just have concerns about that process for the residents in particular. Of course, there is a huge staff work component to it, but if we focus just on the residents, it's an important step for them. It's very traumatic. And when you're doing 2 or 3 a day, it's not the quality that we would like to present. So we are taking that forward. And I did mention it when we were on teleconferences with Ontario Health West and Ontario Health at Home. So there won't be a surprise there that we have this concern. We are ramping up meetings related to furniture and equipment procurement again, now that the new year has started. And I also just wanted to mention that currently the West Grey Lions Club, their Chase the Ace fundraising proceeds this time are going towards the new Rockwood Terrace. Actually, this is the second time they've did it for us, but the first time the ace was caught or won or however that happens very quickly. So the proceeds weren't that great. So they are doing the current one, which has been going on now for several weeks. And they have indicated to us that they would like to purchase a soft serve ice cream machine for the new building. So that'll provide some tasty treats for the residents. And they're also interested in providing volunteer time at the new building and possibly sponsoring some entertainment as well. So looking to get more involved as a club when we make the move. And that is my update for today, but would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Karen. Questions from committee members? I'm just wondering, Jen, when Karen talked about that's a ministry requirement that is 14 residents, or that we, fill up our beds within a 2 to 3 week period. Is that standard across the province? Is Advantage Ontario having any discussions with the ministry in regards to that? Because, you know, as was indicated earlier today, you know, that first few weeks or first couple days is so important in the transition of a client. It just doesn't seem reasonable. So
yeah,
I guess
through you, Mr. Chair, that's exactly it. It is a ministry requirement for all new builds and redevelopments. And it is part of our Roma delegation, and have shared that with Advantage. They have, it has been something they've advocated for. It's a little bit a quieter advocacy. It doesn't affect all of the members for Advantage. And I'm confident that we can appeal to the minister and her team in their vision of quality care. That this government's made a significant investment to improve quality care, has a particular focus right now on dementia care. And we know the trends in terms of residents moving in with dementia or some sort of dementia-related diagnosis is high. And that even further complicates a move, particularly into a new building that staff are also trying to figure out. So staff are trying to figure it out, families are trying to figure it out. Moving into a well-established building like the current Rockwood Terrace is traumatic enough of a change, but when you move in, you feel the warmth and stability of everyone feeling very rooted in a building that's been there for 40 plus years. It will feel different moving in within 2 weeks of a brand new building opening, where everyone's trying to figure out where everything is and how to follow the new routines, et cetera. And as we spoke this morning earlier about just the move, so at some point we should do a little bit of a education overview about the move-in process, because it is very overwhelming. There is reams and reams and reams of paperwork, administration type paperwork, clinical paperwork. We do our best to try to do some of that ahead of time if we can. The resident family services managers take great pride in having a move-in process that is as easy as possible when it's super complicated and rushed, and trying to do 2 of those in a good way a day is really not sustainable and not a reasonable expectation, and doesn't align at all with the vision of person-centered care that we believe in and have for decades, and that the province has been talking about. You know, this government's really been talking about person-centered care. So I'm hoping that we can appeal to the minister from that perspective. And historically, this ministry has made changes. So I'm hopeful that there will be a consideration. There is a piece of the legislation that allows us to apply for, and Karen, you might have to help me with the words, but apply for. So if we, for example, don't do 14 move-ins each week, and we take, say, 4 or 5 weeks, and so we haven't met the occupancy rate, and with that comes a penalty, we don't get the funding that we would expect to get, we can apply retroactively for that to be adjusted. But I would far rather advocate for the process to be adjusted across the province from the beginning than have to risk the province not approving our retroactive appeal for full funding and to plead our case later. That is still an option if there's no budging, and we could talk about that as a committee a little closer to the time and when we've had some more information from the province. But hopeful that they will agree that this isn't in the best interest of the residents. And in terms of moving people along the wait list, we're talking about a few weeks, not months and years. So in the grand scheme of things, we're still opening 28 spaces of home for someone, whether it takes 2 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks. We're still going to be able to place people in a state-of-the-art, high care, person-centered focused home.
Jen, with those funding holdbacks, like, I don't know what that amount of money would be, but it really is important to make sure that all of our clients, those first few days are positive, and it's going to, well, hopefully the minister will listen to us, I guess, to start with, and then maybe we'll cross the other bridge when we get to it. Karen, just wondering, when would the next opportunity be for members of this committee and the redevelopment committee to have a tour again?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm going to look to Niall and Jennifer, but we talked about like late spring or early summer, maybe even for the next visit.
Okay. And I do see Niall's hand. Go ahead, Niall.
So through you, Chair Mackey, yes, Karen's quite correct. I think once we get into the better weather after winter, our primary focus right now is on getting that roof done. And so I think the next appropriate time for us to be looking for both the redevelopment task force and perhaps members of committee to take a wander around would be once we get there. There's going to be the point at which we're able to see some significant changes happening quite quickly. As Karen alluded to, in the drier areas of the building, we're already starting to see some of that take shape, and it's starting to look like it's starting to take shape as a home now. And so I think once we get that roof sealed in, we'll see some quite rapid progress. So I think that would be a good time for us to target.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
And if I may, Chair Mackey, yes, just to add to Director Cornell's points there around the transition arrangement. So, as said, our first approach and remain very hopeful that the ministry will recognise the desire for us to focus on resident care and create a good experience. As was alluded to, there are other options we can explore as we get closer to that, as we hold true to the Colour It promise. And so we will explore those and balance the risks associated to various different strategies against the benefits around resident care as we get closer to the move-in date. But certainly the first hope is that the ministry recognises this issue and helps us towards fixing it.
Thanks, Niall. Is there any other questions for Karen? All right, we'll move back to Tolene, who is going to go over the Colour It stories.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the time. As I was thinking about talking about the Colour It story today, I'm going to do a little bit of a highlight about the Recreation Department, and I kind of thought, well, I'm a nurse, and Kim and Terry and Jen all come from that background, and maybe I'm not as qualified as they are to talk about this. But so I wanted to talk about the Lee Manor Colour It story, which is talking about a men's program in the recreation space. And I really wanted to just, first of all, highlight, I don't think people are, the public or our residents and families, we educate people all the time about the work that's done in that department, but it's a highly specialized skill. It's not just about entertainment, it's not just about, it's great when Elvis comes and puts on a show, and it's bingo is wonderful and the residents love it, but it's also about some really specialized knowledge in geriatrics and in dementia care and in recreation and programming space, that these staff think carefully about what type of programs residents need that give them meaning in their day. When you think about your day, you don't spend your day going to the movies, right? You spend your day going to work, providing a service to someone, coming home, cleaning your house, getting your kids ready, helping them with their homework, cutting the grass, all those types of activities that give us meaning in our day. You're involved in your communities with your church or other service groups, helping give back to the world. And so recreation is a lot about that. So how do we help residents find meaning in their day and purpose? So having said that, the men who live in our homes are a little bit of a minority. There's a lot more women residents. There's a lot more women as staff members who are supporting these residents. And so sometimes I think it can be a bit of a challenge to find something that the gentlemen in the home find interesting and meaningful and gives them some purpose in their day. We can find lots of things as girls. We can talk about cooking programs and nursery programs and all that kind of stuff. But how do we help the guys find something to tinker with or that kind of thing? So at Lee Manor for the last few months, we've sort of refreshed our men's program to help our gentlemen residents be able to do some guy things that are familiar to them, whether that's farming type conversations and discussions, which is outlined in the report, whether that's sanding and tinkering. I've had some gentlemen over the years that you come in the dining room and they've taken the dining room tables apart, so how do we find something that's fun and meaningful and purposeful for these male residents? So that's kind of what I wanted to share, but I thought it was a little bit bigger than that, to just sort of talk about recreation a little bit and highlight the work that they do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Tolleen. Roughly what would the percentage of males be in our homes?
I should have had that ready for you before I came to this call. I apologize. Through you, Mr. Chair, I honestly don't know. Definitely well over half would be women, but I'd have to, I can pull it easily if anybody's interested.
I was just curious. I know we don't live as long, so. All right, any questions for Tolleen? Sorry, now go ahead.
Through you, Chair. No, I may have been just a touch quick on my raised hands. It'd probably be appropriate if you wanted to take those questions just now. I wouldn't mind adding a quick piece that we weren't able to get into this report at the end. But we can, if there are questions for Tolleen, they'd be appropriate now, perhaps.
Well, I didn't see anybody else raise their hand, so go ahead now.
Well, I'm just going to hand over to Jen, actually. So we weren't able to put this into the report, but we've had some good news story on a body of work that Jen and the team was pulling together toward the end of last year. We didn't know about the outcome from that work until after the reports were already done, and we didn't know whether we were going to be able to talk about it until just earlier this week. So I will hand over to Jen to share some good news with committee, which we weren't able to have in the report.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks, Niall, and through you, Mr. Chair. Really exciting, and I think I provided an update at a previous meeting that the ministry had opened. They had announced some funding in the fall around dementia care programming, and they called it the Improving Dementia Care Program, which was an opportunity for operators to submit a proposal around a focus on training and education in enhancing their dementia care programs in their organization. And so we made proposal for Grey Gables and for Lee Manor. And we heard just not long ago that the proposal for Lee Manor has been accepted. What is really exciting is this opportunity was really available to up to 15 long-term care homes in Ontario. So there are 630-ish long-term care homes in the province. And the proposal for the work at Lee Manor is the one of them that has been accepted. The other interesting piece about this is that there's funding, and I think, Tolleen, it was around 3 million each year. 3 million each year for those up to 15 homes over a 3-year period of time. And part of what's included as eligible expenditures is some of the trademarked programs to support dementia care, like the Butterfly Program, Eden Alternative, those kinds of programs. And what we know to be true with our experience with the Behavioral Support Transition Unit and our experience of over a decade with our Color It Your Way philosophy is that you can build person-centered care that has a dementia focus that is vision-based. And so part of our proposal was to demonstrate to the province that a home, so for example, a not-for-profit or municipally operated home that may not be able to have the funds and resources to sustain one of those trademarked programs over a period of time because they're quite costly and it's a significant investment, that we could demonstrate that using a vision-based approach like our Color It Your Way philosophy, partnered with the resources that are already available. So Behavioral Supports Ontario is a fulsome set of training and education resources to support residents with dementia, with expressions of, with behavioral expressions. Plus, we've done a significant amount of work with Teepa Snow, which is an occupational therapist out of the United States who really focuses on the individual and tools and strategies that are non-invasive education about why an individual with dementia might be behaving or acting in the way that they are. And when we understand that and approach things in a certain consistent way, that we can improve their safety, improve their experience, improve the safety of the staff. And so our proposal was just that based on the Color It Your Way philosophy with the BSO plus approach, we intend to build this program and we have enough funds provided to us to train every single one of our team members at Lee Manor in this program. And we intend to embed this training as part of the operational readiness training for the transition at Rockwood Terrace. So all of those team members will also receive that training. And don't worry, we'll find a way to ensure that all of the team members at Grey Gables have a chance to have this training. And I jest, but I don't really jest, that our intention is to have this training be a model in Grey County, in our partners in Grey Bruce and the world. But we feel really confident that this is how we can safely provide care and service for the people that live in our homes and the people that work in our homes, and that it doesn't have to be painting the walls a certain color and purchasing an expensive trademarked program. There are very many benefits of those trademarked programs, and we're able to use what we've learned from them as well. And so really excited. This is the first time we just heard that we're able to speak about it publicly yesterday, late in the day. And so we'll work with Rob and the team to put out some communications, and kudos to Tallene in her effort and work to put the proposal together. And I don't recall exact number, but I believe we were required to have letters of support for our proposal. And I think we had 20 or 25 letters of support from partners across Ontario and honestly across Canada. People really believe in the Color It philosophy, and so really excited to be getting that work approved and underway.
Well, congratulations. I mean, this will be wonderful for both of our staff and our residents too. Dementia is happening more and more, and it's be able to provide the proper programming is going to be essential. So again, all the advocacy that you've done, all of our senior management have done in regards to the Color It story, is paying dividends now to be selected out of 15. So congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. When can we expect the new program to be in place?
Well, it's very tight timelines. So by our next meeting, we might even be done in March. So the timelines are tight. We can do it.
Okay.
It'll be fine. Tolene and I are meeting tomorrow actually to work on figuring out how we get things moving and how all of our partners that supported us, what roles they play. And we do have really great partnerships with the Alzheimer's Society and CLRI. And so you've heard updates about our partnerships, and so they'll be able to help us. Our partnership with economic development, we have the chance to use Sydenham campus. It's a great place to do training and education. So we're really well positioned. And it's going to be a little bit of work, but it's going to be meaningful and purposeful work that's really exciting.
Very good. Any questions from members of committee? All right, that is the end of the operational report. I'll call the question. All in favor of receiving that? That is carried. Thank you. Next, we have that report LTCRCM 03-26, planning for Rockwood Terrace and Grey Gables. Next steps be received for information, and that staff be directed to establish a budget of $198,000 funded from the one-time reserve to support development of a comprehensive background report to inform future decision-making regarding Grey Gables and Rockwood Terrace, and that staff be directed to engage Colliers project leaders through a single source agreement to lead the work at a cost of $54,000 excluding HST, and that the final report be provided to Committee of the Whole upon completion of the work in the fall of 2026. Can I have a mover, please, to get that on the floor? Moved by Shirley and seconded by Sue. Thank you. And Niall, this is your report, and we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair Mackey. And for a minute there, I wondered whether it was not going to make it onto the floor. I wasn't going to have an opportunity to talk today. That would have been a disappointment. So thank you for this one. So as you're all aware, we had some conversations last year, largely associated to the two surveys that have come out from the ministry in regards to what our intention was for the current Rockwood Terrace site, and what our intention was surrounding the additional beds that we had at Grey Gables. And those conversations were held in the fall, largely at Committee of the Whole, due to timelines associated to those surveys. They came in with short turnaround times, and we weren't able to have a robust conversation at this committee in advance of those going to Committee of the Whole. They follow up, obviously, the conversations that have been held at various different times over more or less the last decade plus around how Grey County is positioning itself to support long-term care over coming years. And so we left those conversations with the ministry getting its responses, but a question to have a look to make sure that we've got the right information in the back of our pockets to make decisions as we go forward. It seems odd to be coming with a budget request just a few weeks after we passed the budget. In fact, less than a week after we passed the budget, but we didn't know this information at the time we were preparing for the budget. So this is in addition to the budget that you've the council's already passed. So that's why we're looking to tap into the one-time funding reserve. For clarity, before I go into the details, some of the details of the report, the $198,000 includes some degree of contingency, and the $54,000 comes out from that $198,000. So the $198,000 is what we anticipate to be the full cost. What we're looking for permission and approval and support to spend right now is the $54,000 to Colliers, which would come from that. The balance of that would be tendered to undertake specific elements of work associated to this. So the report covers a little bit of the background of both Grey Gables and Rockwood Terrace and summarizes some of the work that has been done to date. As we know, we will be vacating Rockwood Terrace, and as we heard from Karen, on the 28th of January 2027, that will be a vacant building, and that will then start to incur costs to Grey County on the basis of an asset which is now vacant, but we're still going to have to look after the building. We'll obviously be able to decrease the amount of operational costs associated with looking after that building, but it will have needs on day one after we've opened the new Rockwood Terrace. And so we'll have to keep the heating on to some extent. We'll have to keep the water on to some extent. There will continue to be hydro costs associated to the building. And indeed, these buildings are designed to be operated 24 hours a day. And so we are going to have to look at things like security just to make sure that that property stays in a good condition. So as far as the county is concerned, it's prudent on us to make sure that we're preparing for what the next stage of life of that building will be in the future. And so looking at what that building could be, both in terms of what it could be for Grey County to use it, be that for some form of occupancy into the long-term future, whether it is a facility that we look to lease out and have a third party operate in some way, shape or form, what that could be, what the potential might be for that, and to look at the opportunities we might have around sale and disposal of that asset in some way, shape or form to help inform both this committee and council's further discussions on Rockwood Terrace. Are things that we really should start thinking about now so that we're ready to have those conversations as we start getting closer to the point at which that building is vacated. And so what that looks like is getting some additional work done inside the building to try and understand just what a reuse would look like. So Grey County did undertake a couple of years ago a cursory high-level view of what could be achieved in terms of looking at that building from an affordable housing perspective and converting it into residential units. That work certainly is going to be informative as part of this, but we'd be looking to revisit the building, relook at some of the mechanical systems, the insulation systems, the windows, what structural work might be required on the inside to make that building fit for some alternative use, whether that be affordable housing, perhaps retirement accommodation, or indeed what it could look like to be reactivated as a long-term care home in some way, shape or form. So looking to see what it would look like on the inside. So Colliers would be proposing to bring in an architect and an engineering company to do a comprehensive walk through the building once it's vacated, to add to the information we have from our building condition assessments and everything that we've been doing through the lifespan of that building, to try and think about repurposing suggestions and solutions for that building. Again, that would be repurposing or reuse solutions for Grey County, or it could be for a partner that we work with, or it could be to inform a sale and disposition for somebody else to have that information at hand so they knew what the building could be used for. They'll also undertake a real estate appraisal of the building to look at what the potential lease rates could be if we were to look at renting the building for an alternative function. They'll also give us some idea of what the marketable values of the building would be if we decided to dispose of it and the property. So a comprehensive look at the potential future use scenarios, whether they be Grey County or outside of Grey County, of Rockwood Terrace would be part of this work. The second chunk of the work would be associated with Grey Gables. As we know, we have a historic allocation of 62 beds that we're still waiting to hear back from our ministry survey at Grey Gables. Those 62 beds are currently contingent on the redevelopment of Grey Gables as a 128-bed new facility. There are obviously a whole range of options and scenarios that could play at Grey Gables. That could be a new 128-bed facility. It could be an associated retirement or supportive living community. It could be the addition of a new wing. It could be the adaptation of the space in some way, shape or form. But the current allocation of 62 beds is dedicated to that 128-bed facility. And so what we want to do in regards to Grey Gables, understanding that the ministry is working on some quite tight timelines, is to make sure that we've got a comprehensive suite of information and some options that are costed to an order of magnitude, so that if we are in a position where we want to move forward with some form of redevelopment at Grey Gables, what that could look like. And again, a whole range of solutions and potential options will be considered through the consultants on this one. Everything from 128 bed with a supportive facility in some way to maintaining the status quo and just continuing to operate Grey Gables as a 66 bed Class A facility, and how long we have in terms of lifespan and so on and so forth. So the intent again here is not to presuppose what county may wish to do, but to provide a comprehensive suite of options so that if and when we need to make decisions at the county level, we have all the information on hand to be able to do so. So again, the architect, mechanics, and so on and so forth will be able to pull some of that together and pull together some high-level costings to help inform those conversations when they come forward. Our intention and the way in which we've worked this out is to use Colliers, and we're recommending using Colliers. Colliers have been good to work with thus far on the entire process of pulling together Rockwood Terrace. They have a dedicated branch of business which looks after the long-term care industry, and they have some significant experience in the healthcare sectors and the long-term care sector. And so using Colliers to manage this work, to engage the right companies that we need to provide the information that's needed, and to pull together that report for fall of 2027 is our recommendation. And as noted in the report, the Colliers costs for that work are $54,000. They've provided us the estimates for what they think we could anticipate to pay when they tender for the other elements of work. They would be subject to tender and approval, and Colliers would be helping manage that tender RFP process and as needed, the procurement process as needed, to secure those subcontracting supports to developing this body of work. It is a fair undertaking of work, and so having had the conversations with Colliers, they anticipate this is about 7 months from start to final report in order to be able to go through the whole process at both sites. They may have some early indicative information coming from both Rockwood and Grey Gables in that time, but they believe that to get both pieces of work done in a final report, it's about 7 months. And so that would put us into the late summer or early fall, us reporting back. And again, just given the time of year and the interest of whole of council on this one, we would be proposing at this point to report back to committee of the whole. If there's an opportunity for us to come back to the committee in advance of that committee of the whole conversation, we naturally will. But we'll wait and see how quickly the work can happen on a go-forward basis. I'm quite happy to take any questions that may be on this one. We can activate the work quite quickly. So if it's supported by committee today, we'll obviously have to wait to take this to council and get their endorsement. But we can reach out and get the work started relatively quickly to provide that body of information. And finances assured us that we've got plenty of money and space in the one-time reserve to be able to support this work this year. This has been a conversation which has been going on since we took the surveys to committee of the whole, and so Jen and myself and members of Jen's team have all been involved in various different ways, shapes, and forms. And so I'm sure any one of us will be happy to take any questions committee members might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Niall. Lots of questions are certainly going to be brought forth from county council, and it's important that I believe it's important that we get this information. We've talked about Rockwood and what we're going to do with the old one, but there's a lot of good ideas out there, but every good idea has got a cost attached to it, and we need to drill down a little bit deeper. And I think this is going to be important information. You said the report would come back in the fall. Will that be late fall? I mean, we'll be in a lame duck situation this summer. And these are going to be big decisions that are going to be made on behalf of Grey County. So are we hoping to have the information ready for the new council to make that decision? And at what point, knowing that Karen said the transition from the old Rockwood to the new one may take place in, early winter, and we don't want to hold on to an old building without some direction on where we're going. When would senior staff like decisions to be made by so that the process can be started? And I see Randy there. Maybe we'll give you an opportunity, Randy, to let us know when from a county perspective when we need to make some decisions.
Yeah, and thank you through you, Chair Mackey, and yeah, we've had lots of discussions about this in terms of the timing and the timing of obviously the budget. We've got, as you noted, Chair Mackey, the election obviously this year and the transition to new council later this year. I think this information, just based on the timing and the comprehensive review of that's going to be required, as Niall indicated, it's going to take several months. So it may not be this existing council that is making the final decisions on the direction with respect to those matters, but at least providing that information to this existing council to be considered as part of 2027 budget considerations and beyond. And so I think having at least that information will provide information as well as costings as it relates to the various options, so that this council can at least start to consider some of those elements. We might be able to advance some preliminary work as part of maybe next steps in the 2027 budget as a proposed budget. But even as the transition this year with the budgets, which we just chatted about yesterday with the senior management team, typically when we have an election year, the existing council in that transition year would be maybe supporting a budget in principle, but at the end of the day, it would be the new council that is actually approving the budget in 2027 and beyond. So that's where we would at least have hopefully the information to be able to start those conversations with the existing council, but then likely final decisions to be made by the new council, just based on what we anticipate having all the information before us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if I may, Chairman, just to add to Randy's point there, when this report comes back, I think we're all anticipating this will be a for information report, and that any decisions would then follow after that. So that the intent would be to bring the information back for this term, but the subsequent decision tree probably falls to later ones. Now, of course, that all depends on what the province does and the ministry does in response to those surveys, but who knows?
So before I go to members of the committee, just to follow up, do you anticipate a decision being required on Rockwood before a decision necessarily is required on Grey Gables? Like, I guess I'm wondering what sort of time frame council is going to have on Grey Gables, and we know the dates for Rockwood. I'm not sure where the province is in regards to what we want to do with Grey Gables. Is there a drop dead date for Grey Gables, or?
So through you, Chair, and Jen, feel free to add into this if I miss something. There are no drop dead dates on anything at this point in time. So Rockwood, we have currently, through the budget process for the existing Rockwood Terrace, we have built operating capacity within the 2027 budgets to maintain that building in a good state of repair through 2027. So we've already built in what it would look like to do that. So there's no urgency. I mean, you'll probably, as a council, probably want to make a decision sooner rather than later. You don't want to be keeping a building empty for 10 years without purpose. But there is no urgency to make a decision in 2026 on the fate of Rockwood Terrace. And likewise, at this point in time, there's no decision required or pending in regards to Grey Gables. Grey Gables County has committed to as a 66-bed Class A facility, long-term care home, for the foreseeable future. So at this point, there is no decision tree that's in place for either one of them. As was noted, we did respond to the 2 ministry surveys, and the response we provided is that Grey County Council at this point in time is unable to commit to anything for either of those 2 buildings before 2030 in terms of their next steps. So we have indicated that there's an extensive amount of time. We haven't yet heard back from those 2 ministry surveys as to what, if anything, the ministry is going to require from us. And so the one unknown we have at this point in time is what the ministry might come back with to Grey County that might require some form of a response or a decision to be made at some point in 2026. But at this point, there is no decision that is needed on either facilities. We are planning for those we've already budgeted for them as they currently are into the 2027 window.
Thank you. All right, questions from members of the committee? I'm not seeing any. All in favor of receiving Niall's report? That is carried. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is a closed session, and I believe Jen, Niall, Randy, Tara, Brittany, and Rob will be staying with us. So thank you to other senior managers for all your work over the last year and for all the information today. So I have a resolution that the Long-Term Care Committee of Management now goes into closed session pursuant to section 239 sub 2 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss a staff matter, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal and local board employees, and labor relation employee negotiations. Can I have a mover, please, to go into closed? Moved by Tom and seconded by Dane. And Tara, I'll just look to you to make sure that we only have the members present that we should have.
Okay, thank you. Will just be a moment. Rob's going to move everyone out of the room and confirm that